Is there anybody out there?
The lights in the night sky. Skywatchers. We're watching. We're watching.
Did you see that?
Skywatcher
on Skywatcher Radio. SkywatcherRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. This is Deborah Jane East for Skywatcher Radio. I hope everybody is having a great day. It's a typical rainy, foggy day here in Washington, and I have a wonderful guest that I've been trying to get on for a while. In fact, I had him scheduled earlier, but an unexpected grandchild made its way into my life, so I was very thankful that he was able to reschedule. So I want to tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get on with the show. His name is Rey Hernandez, and he is an experiencer, and he is currently employed as an estate tax attorney with the IRS, United States Department of Treasury. He was previously the director of the Center for Sustainable Urban Environment at the City University of New York and the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He was a Ph.D. candidate at UC Berkeley in City and Regional Planning. He is a recipient of a National Science Foundation Ph.D. fellowship. And I might add, too, that he is a wonderful friend, a very, very nice person. I've known him for a while, and I'm excited to be on the show here with him because we're going to talk about an organization that he is the co-founder of, and that is FREE, F-R-E-E. And I'm going to let him tell you all about it because there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in FREE. And I am sure that everybody is going to be interested, and it is something that I think has been long overdue. So how are you doing today, Ray?
I'm excellent, Deborah. Thank you very much. And once again, I just want to congratulate you on having a healthy grandchild, and hopefully it will be the first of many more to come.
Oh, yes. There's nothing like a grandchild. I tell you, they are a blessing, and the more you get, the more you want. So hopefully I'll have some more in the future because they're all so wonderful and everything. At night, you get to send them back home with the parents. So you get to have the
That's the best part.
Parents get to stay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to hear a little bit about what got you interested in starting FREE. And you want to tell everybody a little bit about FREE and what it stands for, first of all?
Okay. How much time do we have total, Deborah, for the interview?
As much as you want, Ray.
Okay. All right. Excellent. FREE stands for the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And our website is FREE at our email is free@experiencer.co. And our website is experiencer, that's experiencer.co. It's not com, it's .co. We tried to purchase the .com, but that person wanted like $1,500 for it, and we just couldn't afford it.
Oh, my goodness. That's expensive.
And so we're trying to deal with CO for the time being, and eventually we are a certified non-for-profit in the state of Florida, and we're in the process of applying for a 501c3 status with the federal government, and then hopefully we'll be able to get the .org, experiencer.org in the very near future. But for now, we are experiencer.co. Now,
right.
Let me sort of tell you a little bit of background about myself before we get into FREE, because it's important to understand that before we jump into what FREE is doing. So if you don't mind, if I could just briefly tell a little bit about my experience.
That would be great because it's really fascinating. When you first explained to me all the things that you had encountered, it really blew my mind. So why don't you tell us a little bit about
it? Blew my mind even more, I'm telling you. Well, let me, for your audience members, my initial experience started in March of 2012. So it's just very, very recently, unlike so many other experiencers and people having ET contact for many, many years, and some, since the cradle. So for my background, as you read off, I had an academic background. I was one of these kids that grew up in, a rough neighborhood. I never did much studying when I was younger because I didn't need to. Examinations came very, very easily to me. And I really started to study once I got into college. And then I did extremely well as an undergraduate at Rutgers College. And then I went on to work for the University of California, Berkeley for 3 years. Then I got I went into a master's program at Cornell University, and I aced out. I got all A's there at Cornell, and then I got a National Science Foundation Ph.D. fellowship, and I decided to go back to Berkeley. And Berkeley is the top planning school in the country. And I did all of my, over a 4-year period, I did at Berkeley, all of my exams, all of my coursework. And I had my dissertation prospectus reviewed and accepted by a committee. So I was at the New School for Social Research, which is a university in Manhattan. It's most famous for offering master's and Ph.D. programs. And they had a very small urban planning department. And the agreement was that I would be finishing my dissertation there. And then once I finished, then they would have a tenure track position as a faculty member at the school open for me. But I was never able to finish my dissertation because my ex-wife got a brain aneurysm about 6 months after I arrived there, and back in 1988. And we had 2 little babies. Her sister was still in high school, and her mom had just recently retired. So I basically had to quit my dissertation and take 2 full-time jobs to maintain our household. And then I went to work for the city of New York, doing environmental planning in their Office of Environmental Quality, and I eventually became the director of the Office of Environmental Quality. And then I wrote a grant for the City University of New York, a $3 million grant that they received. And then the dean at that college asked me to come by, and I would be the director of that environmental program. So I taught some courses at the City University of New York, and I ran this environmental project that we had gotten the grant for. So while I was there, I took advantage, and I went to law school because of the reduced tuition, because I was working there full time, and I became a lawyer. And then, first job offer that I got was with the IRS, and it's a boring job, boring as hell, but hey, it pays the bills, And I've been doing that for 16 years. And so here I was, excuse me?
You've been a busy man.
Yes. So here I was, basically a frustrated academic who never was able to finish his Ph.D., going to one of the top schools in the country, University of California, Berkeley. That's the university that's had the most Nobel Prize winners in the world. Always wanting to be an academic since I was young, never able to, and now I was basically doing a boring job with the IRS. So that was my background. I was a pure agnostic at best. I wanted to believe in God, okay, but my rationalist thinking prevented me. Again, I come from that purely rationalist, materialist, scientific background. And all of that changed in March of 2012. The day before, which was Saturday, at about 6 o'clock in the evening, we had some friends over. We were outside in the patio, and all of a sudden, a friend of mine points to our dog. Our dog in Spanish was called Nena. Nena means little girl in Spanish. She was a Jack Russell Terrier, 16 years old. We had been keeping her alive with tons of medications. And she was walking around like an old lady, very gingerly and delicately. We knew that, her days were numbered. But, we didn't want to put her to sleep because we didn't see her in pain or anything like that. And, this is like a family member, And so, we were trying to keep her alive, keep her quality of life. So when my friend pointed out to her that she was totally paralyzed from the neck down, she was still able to move her neck and bark, but she couldn't move. Then we tried pushing her and moving her, and, it was apparent that she had a stroke. So then we called up our vet. Yeah, no, it was horrible. And so we called up our vet, and then the vet said, look, I'll open up our office the next day, Sunday, and we'll do a little ceremony, He was a friend of ours. We'll do a ceremony and we'll put her to sleep, But there's no need now if she's not in pain or, it's not an emergency. We knew that her time had come. So my wife, who's a hardcore Catholic, she was born in Mexico, raised in Mexico, and myself, I accompanied her at church just so we wouldn't have a fight, You better come with me to church. What kind of an example are you going to set for your daughter?
You were trying to be a good husband.
Try to be a good husband,
Yeah.
And so, but she was praying all night, all night, even stayed up very, very late, praying for a miracle to happen. Okay. And then Sunday morning, the very next day, roughly 12 hours later, at about 6 o'clock, the dog started barking, woo, woo, woo. So then, we got excited. We said, oh, maybe she's healed up. She's better, So my wife, got her, pushed her, moved her, and the dog was still, like, you could tell she was trying to move, and she just, nothing, she was still paralyzed. So, we were saddened by that. So my wife picked her up and went to bring her outside to do pee. Okay. So then when she got downstairs, again, this is Sunday at 6 in the morning, okay, she was walking down the stairs, and right in front of us is our living room. And that part of our house, in the mornings, there's no light that can come through because we have a dividing wall, and that whole wall separates the easterly part of our house. And so any sunlight does not go through there early in the morning. It's totally dark, still there. And what she saw was sort of semi-glowing and radiating was an object that was 4 feet off the ground, one sort of in the corner of the wall, 1 foot from the back wall, 1 foot from the side wall where we have a window. And what it looked like was basically an upside-down U, roughly 2 feet wide by 3 feet in height. It was a metallic object, silverish in color, like white silverish was the way my wife described it. And then immediately when she saw this thing floating, 4 feet off the ground, she knelt down and she started praying, okay? And basically said, if you're a bad spirit, get the hell out. But if you're a good spirit or an angel or the Virgin Mary, the Mexicans, they see the Virgin Mary everywhere, then the only thing I ask is for you not to let my nenita suffer, okay? So my wife was recounting this experience later on after this event occurred, okay? So then when she started praying and basically in her head telling this thing, if you're bad, get the hell out. If you're good, take care of my nenita, don't let her suffer. All of a sudden, these 2 green lights started zooming in on her from this object. And they were like scanning her with a green light. And then at the same time, from the sides, this white fluorescent light started shooting to the sides. And she described it as actually hitting the curtain, which is like a foot away from the wall, because it was sideways. And then all of a sudden, she started yelling for me. And she was screaming, Ray, 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 because at that point, she freaked out,
I can imagine.
This can't be an angel here. There's got to be something else, And so, I didn't sleep all the night before. It's Sunday morning, 6 o'clock. I thought she had seen a cockroach or a little mouse or something like that. And I didn't answer. Yay, right, And finally I said, leave me alone. I want to sleep, leave me alone, Right. And I didn't answer her for like, I forgot, 10 minutes or something like that, I might have said, it better be a big damn cockroach, So anyway, she came up and she grabbed me and she hauled me down, right? And in my head, I was like, this better be good. It better be one of those big, monster water bugs, that type of thing, And that's what I was thinking in my head, And so when I got downstairs, and this is important, and this is where the weird stuff comes in. First of all, when I got down there, I didn't see my wife. I didn't see the dog. I didn't hear them. Okay? The only thing I saw was this other object, totally different from what she saw. Okay? And let me describe what I saw. In the same location, 4 feet off the ground, 1 foot from the back wall, 1 foot from the side wall, I saw a floating plasma being. I call it a being because it controlled me. Okay? Now let me describe what it was, what it looked like. It was multicolored, semi-transparent, of pure energy. The best way to describe it would be if you ever seen like the Science Channel or these science shows, you see like these plasma electricity that's floating in the air, by these machines that make all this electric plasma. Okay?
Yes.
It was something along those lines, except it was, big. It was like 2 feet wide by 1.5 feet in height. It might have been even 3 feet wide by almost 2 feet in height. The shape was sort of like rectangular in shape, but as I said earlier, it didn't have any external edges because it was pure energy inside. Multicolored, tons of colors all inside. And what I did was, again, it's not rational, and it's not, for a long time I had difficulty understanding why I did what I did, okay? Now I know why. But basically, I looked at it, I squinted at it, I waved my hand at it, I said, bullshit, okay? Then I turned around, I walked back up the stairs, I laid right back in my bed, put my hands on my chest, and I looked straight up at the ceiling for about 15 minutes. During that time period, I had no conscious thought. The only thing I knew was that I was looking at the ceiling. And I remembered looking at the ceiling, and then when I sort of woke up, like about a couple of seconds before I woke up, it was sort of like the hypnotist snapped his fingers, and he said, "Okay, kid, wake up." And all of a sudden, I was like, "Holy, what? What the hell just happened?" And I ran down the stairs, like, what took place. And then when I got down the stairs, my best that I could describe it to you is as follows. Imagine someone in a Pentecostal church, right? Stomping on their hands and legs, waving their hands all over the place, and that was my wife. And she was, "Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah, the angels cured her, the angels cured her." And I was like, and then I saw the dog acting like a little puppy, running from one side of the room to the other side of the room, and the other side of the room, and jumping up and down, and jumping up and down. And my wife would carry her and spin her around and kiss her and put it down. And then my wife, "Hallelujah, hallelujah," waving her hand. And in my head, I was like, what the,
What a scene. What a scene.
Exactly. That day blew my mind. Okay? Blew my mind. Okay? Then I asked my wife, what the hell happened? You saw it with your own 2 eyes. The angels came. They answered my prayers. They cured my nanita. Right? And I was like, what angels? What the hell are you talking about? And that's when she described to me what she saw, that silver whitish color object, with the lights and, the whole works. And I said, I didn't see that. When I went downstairs, I saw something totally different, and I described what she saw. And then she goes, I didn't see that. That wasn't there. And what it is that you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, that's why you didn't see it, And I said, but I did see something.
Confused. You're really confused now.
I was like, yeah, So and I was telling her that's not what I saw. I saw something totally different. And then I told her what I did and what I acted. I said, do you remember me coming down? And she said, I remember you coming down with me, but I don't recall anything until you got down to the stairs, It's like those 15 minutes were a blank for her, It's like she was not there, or she was unconscious or whatever. Something took place, okay, that she has no recollection. And so, but basically, our dog was miraculously cured of a total paralysis. And not only that, she was also brought back to the point where she was like a little puppy. Because remember, I told you that she was like very lethargic, walking around and moving and things of that sort. And then we brought her to the vet, and then the vet said, is she going to the bathroom at night? And we said, no, we don't need to do that anymore. She's like, holds it in, She says, well, stop giving her those diuretics, right? And then she said, how is she running and moving around and stuff like that? I said, like a little puppy. She said, well, start giving her, because she was taking Viagra, for her heart, And I used to sneak a couple of pills now and then, But just joking. But anyway, we were giving her Viagra for her heart, and I think the term is diuretics, which is a medication to flush out the excess water in your system. Correct. Because her heart was enlarged. So it's just like an old person, she was taking the same medicine that my father is taking, And so the doctor said, stop giving her that. If she's running around and acting like a little crazy puppy, what the hell happened? And we didn't tell him, because how in the hell can you tell a vet, our story,
Exactly.
But we eventually did. Like a year later, we did. And, he thinks we're freaking crazy now, But we told him everything that took place afterwards. And then, so anyway, getting back to this story. Then what happened was, for myself individually, for the next 6 months, I just went crazy going to the internet because it was like, I started typing in for the first time in my life, UFOs, ETs, the paranormal. I never had any interest in these things, And when I went to the internet, all it did was just make me more confused, They're devils, they're gods, they're Anunnakis, they're Nephilium, they're this, they're that. And I was frustrated because... Excuse me?
There's a lot of stuff on there that can be confusing for somebody that's just getting interested in the subject, for sure.
Exactly. It all it did was just cause confusion for me, and I was used to getting straight answers. I mean, you research something, you're going to get a response, And in this case, it's like everyone is an expert in this field. Everyone has all the answers, and then I'm reading all this stuff. It's like, and it's all contradictory, all diverse, And so basically that was me. And then I ordered, I signed up for MUFON like 2 weeks later. I still have a check that I sent for MUFON, And then I ordered like tons of books on UFOs, So I basically started doing that. And in the meanwhile, my wife started seeing these huge crafts at night, okay? One time she told me, last night Nanita woke me up at 3:30 in the morning. Now, remind you, this is our dog. Woke her up at 3:30 in the morning. Instead of going through the back door, our dog wanted to go in the front door, okay? So the back door is where, we have a little puppy dog, whatever, and she does her necessities and stuff in the backyard. So, no, she didn't want that. She wanted to go in the front door. And we live in a very long and wide cul-de-sac, a semicircle, which is very deep. And we live right at the fulcrum, at the basis of this cul-de-sac. And my wife steps outside at 3:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden she hears like a noise, like a 747 jet was right above her. And I asked her, how long did it last? She said it lasted like a minute. And they said, well, shouldn't have woken up the whole neighborhood? Yes. He said it was deafening, It was like a jet. The 747 jet was like, 10 feet on top of my head. That's how loud it was. And then she said when the noise stopped, she looked up in the sky, and there was a huge craft. The craft, she said, it was like a football stadium, okay? She showed me pointing, like the size of it, and it was from one side of one tree to another side of another tree, like 2 blocks away. She even saw all the colors of this craft, on the edges of it. And she says, my angels came and paid a visit to me last night. They came aboard their angelic craft. It had colors just like the stained glass windows of our church, And I was like, what? Angels? Our church? What the hell are you talking about?
Really, that's a lot to digest.
Yeah. And then she was, that's because you're an atheist, And she, again, repeated all of that stuff to me. And she started seeing all these crafts. Even she went to Mexico for a month to stay with her family down there. And again, there she called on a craft, and the craft basically hovered above Veracruz Airport for about an hour, and it was the lead story in the 11 o'clock news. You know, they had 3 reporters at the airport. They had reporters in the port interviewing people. That it was videotaped. It was photos. There was a major lead article in the newspaper in Veracruz, you know, which is a major city in of close to 1 million people in Mexico. And she didn't tell anybody.
To the Twilight Zone. That right there.
She didn't tell anybody that she called on that craft.
Yeah, you just have to say, wow, what is the real moment where you like scratching your head
and she didn't tell me that until later on. Okay, but let me continue with the story. The next day, okay, it was the baptism of her niece. Okay, and there she hooked up. That was the topic of conversation. You know, this craft that stopped all traffic for about an hour over the airport. Okay. And so she hooked up with a cousin that she hadn't seen in like 20 years. And this cousin basically said, I talk to these ETs all the time. As a matter of fact, I see these UFOs all the time myself. So at that point, my wife pulled her to the side and said, look, this is what's been happening to me, you know. And there they changed stories and this and that, you know. My wife, you know, okay, I'm not going crazy, you know. There's someone else that's having these things. Because we don't have TV in our house, okay. My wife doesn't have an internet in her room. She refuses to go to the internet. You know, one of these internet phobia people. So she has no idea. She has never touched any of the UFO books that I had read, so she has no story of this stuff, no background whatsoever.
She's unpolluted. Yeah.
And then to her, they're angels, and that's it. You know, anytime I talk about it, whatever, you're an atheist. You know, you need to go to church, you know. Blah, blah, blah. And so, anyway, when she came back like about 4 or 5 days later after, I didn't finish the story. So then the cousin said, look, let's do an experiment. I many times I've called down crafts, and they've appeared, okay? But not like you, close up. You know, they've like little balls in the sky have appeared and stuff like that. Let's do an experiment. At 9 o'clock when we go home from the party, okay, let's call down a craft. Now, the cousin was going down the coast, okay? And then, but my wife was going with another sister of hers up into the mountains where she lived. And it was 2-car caravan that was going back there because it was all of a lot of the friends from the family that came down from this other major city. So here they were, 2 cars. My wife knew all the people in these cars. There were 2 teenagers. One, I think, was 16. The other one was 18. That's her nieces. Her sister's an attorney in Mexico. There were 3 dentists. And then there was an architect, okay, and then the husband of one of those dentists. So, you know, it was loaded with people. Not at 9 o'clock, but at 9:30, a craft descended from the sky, came close, beamed down a blue light in front of the lead car for like a minute. Then the blue light was descended up, and then the craft just shot off, okay. I interviewed everybody. The only discrepancy was that some people remember the blue light, some people don't remember the blue light. But everyone saw this thing, okay? And they even thought that they saw like windows in this thing. And the color was like purplish color, okay, of the craft, okay, that was in the sky. So when when my wife came back home like several days later, she didn't tell me anything because she knew that I was just crazy on the internet, you know, trying to research this thing. She didn't tell me anything. About a couple of days later, okay, after she had gotten home. As you know, I'm an attorney, and in the church, we go to Spanish Mass. There's a lot of, you know, poor individuals that go to the Spanish Mass. And I'm sort of like the pro bono attorney for a lot of them, you know. So here's this one guy says, Ray, I got all these tickets, I need to go to court like 8 different times. And I said, look, man, you got to pay these tickets when you get them, not wait, you know. And then I said, look, I'll do a motion to consolidate them, like that you go to court 1 time instead of 8 different times. I said, you need to give me the tickets. And then he calls me up, it was at 9 o'clock at night. He says, Ray, I got the tickets. I said, okay, great. Where are you at? He says, I'm real close to you. I said, fine, I'll wait for you outside. You give me the tickets and you'll be on your way. And so in the front of the house, there's no traffic in my neighborhood, very little traffic. And then the entrance of the cul-de-sac, it's like a no-through fare. So there's even no cars coming in, only the people that live within the 3-block area of where the cul-de-sac is at that come through here. So there's no traffic at all. So I'm never out in the front at night, all right? So anyway, I'm waiting for this guy. And then I started looking up in the sky, and I saw the area that my wife saw, that huge craft. And I said to myself, my God, that craft was huge, you know? And then all of a sudden a thought came into my head, this guy that I'd seen on the YouTube video the night before calling down these crafts in the middle of the day. And he would have a little camera. And then what appeared was like a little dot in the sky that would be moving around and stuff like that. And I remembered how he had called down this craft. And while I was waiting for my friend, I said, what the hell? Let me try. Let me experiment. Okay. But I was joking around. You know, I really wasn't serious, you know. Let me try it. So I started, I want to see you, the beautiful angelic craft that my wife saw. She had the privilege of seeing you, but I didn't. She mentioned that you had colors just like the stained glass windows of our church. I want to be able to see you. You know, she was able to see you. I only saw when you guys were inside our living room, but I want to see the actual craft. Please show yourself to me, the angelic craft that my wife saw, you know, blah, 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 blah. So then I would turn around, you know, look up in the sky, do a 360. I said, okay, let's do it again. You know, boom, boom, boom. And I repeated the same thing. I did that for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I was like, I'm freaking going crazy, man. I really reached the bottom of the pit with this, you know, junk, you know. I'm losing, man. I'm going nuts. I got to give this shit up, you know. And at that point, right, boom, on top of my neighbor's house, right next door to me, the next door neighbor, he has a ranch-style ranch, okay, was a football stadium, not football field, football stadium-sized craft, okay? Huge. The craft seemed like sitting on top of his roof, but in actuality, it was like maybe 5 to 10 feet from the top of his roof. He has these 3 huge palm trees in the front of his house. Those 3 huge palm trees were blocking the bottom part of that craft.
Wow.
Yeah. And and what it was comprised of was, let me describe it to you. It was semi-transparent. It was a totally cloudy sky, totally cloudy. So you could see the clouds through it. And what it was made up was thousands and thousands and thousands of oblong, you know, circular, you know, very long circular streaks of light. But when you put them all together, it formed the whole shell of the craft. So you could clearly see the whole external part of the craft. And then the inside part of the craft had all of this plasma energy inside moving around, okay? And it seemed like it was in a circular pattern too, okay? So you could clearly see how huge it was. It went back like 2 blocks long, you know, because there's some huge trees and you know, if you're looking in that direction, this thing went even further back than those big, huge trees, you know, way further. And height, again, it's difficult to estimate height, but maybe at least a football field in height. So it was much more longer than it was higher, okay? In terms of width, it was like maybe 2 ranch-style houses in width, or maybe a ranch and a half, that type of stuff. So it was... And all of a sudden, I heard a voice in my head, and it was the voice of my daughter. My daughter had just turned 10 years old, and she had never told me this, okay? Now I know that it was these ETs that put that voice in my head. And basically, it was the voice of my daughter saying, Daddy, you and Mommy have seen UFOs. Next time you guys see a UFO, you let me know. All right, Daddy? I want to see one. You let me know. And again, if you're thinking logically, and before all these adventures, I used to think logically, okay, you would never succumb, your daughter, especially a daughter just turned 10 years old, to come out and see this huge, gigantic thing, because you don't know what the hell's going to happen, okay? But it didn't even enter my mind, okay? All I know is that my daughter gave me this message, and I need to go get her, because she needs to see this, okay? So I basically took like 10 steps to the right, you know, because we were in a cul-de-sac, and I started yelling at outside the window where my daughter was. And I was yelling at her to come out. So she opens the window. She goes, "What is it, Daddy?" I said, "Sweetheart, there's a UFO out here. Hurry up, get out. Hurry up, run. There's a UFO out here." So like in 5 seconds, she was outside. You know? So now she and I are looking at this thing, and she goes, "Daddy, what is that?" I said, sweetheart, it's a UFO, but it's in hiding. It doesn't want to get caught because we have a lot of military jets that and radar that she might be afraid of. That maybe we might shoot it down, you know. Then she goes, oh, you know. So we were looking at this thing, and we weren't scared at all. The closest comparison would be like we were watching the 4th of July show. Okay. Now, about 10 or 15 minutes later, after my daughter and I were looking at this light show, my friend shows up, and not by himself. He comes with his wife and their 17-year-old daughter. Okay. And both of them are college graduates. You know, he's from Mexico. He has a business here, and his wife is from Colombia, also a college graduate. She's a business major, and she works for a business down here in Miami, an import and exporting business. And the daughter was a senior in high school. Okay. And so anyway, they come up to me. They leave the car right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. They run to where we were, and they go, what the hell is that? And I said, you know damn well what it is, you know. And no, it can't be, you know. So then they started coming up with explanation after explanation after explanation. And with each explanation, I was like shooting it down, you know, because just, you know, crazy things that they're coming up with. And after like 10 minutes of them trying to explain this, I started to laugh out loud, you know. And in my head, I was saying, basically to the ETs, I said, you better come up with some better stuff, man, because they don't believe you, you know. And I was laughing, you know, you better change the program, brothers, because they don't believe you. You know? All of a sudden, the light patterns totally changed. Instead of these oblong streaks of light, thousands and thousands of oblong streaks of light, they were replaced by thousands and thousands of stars. Okay? 10 times the size of Venus. And they were blinking on and off like 2 to 3 times per second. So it was like on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, like that, blinking on and off like that, all throughout. And then they would take turns concentrating in different areas. Okay? So sometimes it would still be throughout the whole craft that you would see these stars, but it would be concentrated in certain sectors. And then for the next 10 minutes, my friends were like pointing, oh, look over there, look at over there, you know, and then their daughter would say, oh, look at that one over there, because they would like form these patterns, you know, inside the craft by all these stars concentrating. And then after 10 minutes, all of a sudden, our friend said, oh, we got things to do, we got to go. And I didn't even question it, okay? So if you were a rational person, you were like, what are you, freaking crazy, man? You know, if we take a picture of this thing, we'd be on the front cover of Time magazine for the next year, you know?
Exactly.
And no one even bothered to take out a camera. The neighbor underneath the house, he and his wife turned on the light, right? And they were looking at us. You know, it's like, you know, why are these, you know, 5 people looking right on top of our house? And so, you know, what you would think, if you're thinking logically, you would knock on his door and you would say, Pablo, you know, get your ass out, you know, look what the hell's on top of your roof, you know. Didn't even come across our mind, you know. All of us had cell phones. No one even took pictures. So now anyway, my friend says, we got to go. And it didn't even enter my mind. Okay, don't worry about those tickets. I'll take care of them. See you tomorrow. Bye. You know, like as if nothing is going on, you know. Then my daughter and I stayed watching this for like another 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, altogether we were out there at least 45 minutes. The estimate would be maybe 45 minutes to an hour, something along those lines, but at least 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I felt that I was being attacked by mosquitoes. And after a minute of being attacked by these mosquitoes, or 30 seconds, something along those lines, I grabbed my daughter. I said, come on, Scott, let's get out of here. These mosquitoes are killing me. Okay? So I went inside the house. Meanwhile, this show is still going on outside. Okay? Wow. And so like about a couple of minutes, I forgot the exact, 5 minutes, I don't know, after we got inside the house, my daughter goes to me, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside. And when she said that, it was like the hypnotist snapped his finger. It was like the magic words, Just like when I was upstairs, like the hypnotist said, okay, kid, wake up. We're done with the dog and your wife, and I woke up.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to me.
It's like you snapped out of it when she said that.
Yeah, when she said that, all of a sudden it snapped me out of it. I woke up to our true reality. And then I said, holy shit, what the hell just happened? So I went and grabbed the camera, our video, ran outside, Nothing. Okay. And it was then that I realized, I said, oh my God, these ETs, they're able to control part of your mind, okay? Because while you're talking to your friends and to your daughter, you think that you're totally under control, like we're talking right now, like you have all your rationality or your consciousness available to you, okay? But in actuality, what they did is they drew a line, and they said, okay, on your side of this line, you think that you're consciously interacting. You could talk to your friends, talk to your daughter. All your worldview, your reality is what you think it is. But we're not going to let you cross this other line, which is the line of our true reality, of taking pictures of us, of knocking on Pablo's door and say, Pablo, get out, that type of stuff. It's like you couldn't cross that line of truly understanding what was going on. It's difficult to explain, but I hope that I've explained a little bit about it, of how part of your mind is controlled. The other half, the other part of it is still.
It's almost like, it sounds to me, having had surgery before, when you're sedated, it's like your mind goes into another space of calmness and things. Your reality seems different. It's almost like you stepped into like an isolated reality of some sort.
Yeah, it's like you're in some other type of isolated reality, but the part that you a part of you thinks that it's normal. It's like you and I talking right now. It's like you're totally unaware of it. Okay. So anyway, now here's the crazy part. That wasn't even the crazy part. Okay. The crazy part came afterwards. Before, like I told you, I was 6 to 8 hours a day on the computer. Just trying to find out what's going on. And I would be reading about UFOs, ETs, and all of this, paranormal stuff, and reading all these UFO books. Immediately, starting the next day, I dropped that like a cold turkey. Okay, what's the saying? I dropped that cold. I then, don't tell me why, how it started. Then what I did is I went to Amazon and I ordered like 20 books on near-death experiences, like 15 NDE books, and like 5 books on consciousness studies. Now, this is scientific consciousness studies, okay? The part that dealt with quantum physics and the physics of consciousness and the scientific studies of consciousness. And all I did until these books came in was on the internet watching all these videos on NDEs and consciousness studies. And then once the book came in, I just stopped going to the internet. It was just reading these books. And it was every day till 4 in the morning. I would only sleep like 2 or 3 hours. Wake up at 6 or 6:30, boom, until the next night, And I would start reading, like 3 o'clock all the way until early in the morning. And this was for 4 months straight. I became an expert in near-death experiences, okay? Easily over 300 books that I read, and numerous articles. And then in terms of consciousness studies, goodness, I've read, hundreds of books as well on those topics and articles on that topic. And again, it was scientific consciousness studies, not metaphysics. And then I never knew why I was doing this. My wife thought I was going crazy, okay? But then 4 months later, this was on December 21st, 2012, on a Friday. I brought my daughter to our pediatrician, who I had never met. My wife had always brought her to the pediatrician. And so I brought her to the doctor's office, and then out of the blue, the very first person I ever asked about near-death experiences, I never even said that to anyone else. The only other person was my wife, about near-death experiences. Well, let me ask a question to the audience members that are out there. Okay, what is the statistical probability of the very first 3 individuals that you ever asked about NDEs, near-death experiences, 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday, that those 3 people then turn around and tell you that they have had near-death experiences?
Wow, it would be very small, I would think.
Okay, it would be in the millions. Okay, if not the billions. It's like winning the the jumbo lottery, whatever that they have in those 50 states, whatever that is called, you know?
Yeah,
So, something along those lines.
Not everybody has that. Not everybody has a near-death experience.
And it's the very first 3 people you ever mentioned it to. You have never mentioned it to anyone else. And then 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, December 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 2012. Okay? I won't go into those details, okay, of what transpired and what they told me. But these were full-blown near-death experiences that these people told me, okay? And then it was that night driving home, the last person was my father, the last person that took place, okay? And he even had what in the literature is called a life review. That means that the spirit that he associated as God, he said kept them up there for at least 20 to 30 years. I said, what do you mean 20, 30 years? He says, that's how long I was up there, and that time doesn't exist. And then he said that God showed him all the good things that he had done in his life and all of the bad things. But it showed him not only with his mind, with his consciousness, reliving that experience, but also the mind and the consciousness of the other person. So, for example, if he got into a fight with a little 12-year-old boy, and he's, pounding the little kid, on the floor, he got to relive that experience from his brain, but also that other boy that he was beating up. Okay, that he was beating up.
Incredible! Wow. Okay,
and then basically at the end, I go to him. I said, "Pop," and he said that God would teach him a lesson after each of these presentations, after each of these videos, And I said, "Well, do you recall any of them?" He goes, "How the hell do I know? That happened 50 years ago. 15 years ago." And then I turned to my mother and I said, "Mom, you never told me about this." And then she told me it was, after he got out of the heart surgery that he was like hysterical, wanting to tell me this story. And I told him, go back to sleep, go back to sleep. He just came out of surgery and he was like crazy trying to tell her this. And she said that that's the only time they've discussed it. Okay. And she thought that it was just, a dream that he had. But then me putting it into context of all, I didn't tell him about the ET stuff, just about what happened on Friday and the day before, Saturday, And so then I said, well, have you heard of any other people that have had near-death experiences? And then they started naming a couple of people, that have had these, either relatives or people that they knew, And then, so anyway, after that was when I started having all these paranormal experiences. And I won't go into details, but basically, so far I've identified in the Miami area at least 50 people that have either had near-death experiences or that have seen UFOs. And it's, I'm sure you must have heard that from other experiencers. It's like you get this psychic intuition type of sense, And
Exactly.
And for me, it's, excuse me?
Exactly, but let me tell you just one thing, and this is the truth. Everybody that knows me will tell you this. Guess what, Ray? I had a near-death experience in 2007.
Look at that. It's so shocking to me because the relationship between people that have had ET contact and near-death experiences. One time I was in a conference call with members of Free. We had 7 people on the line, okay? 5 of them had near-death experiences, okay? And myself, I didn't have a near-death experience, but I had that event where like 3 days in a row this happened. So if you add me to that, that's like 6 out of those 7 people, okay? And then I always ask people, have they had NDEs? And oh my goodness, it's like a huge amount, a huge percent. So that's something for the audience members to think about, for the people that have had ET contact, how many of those have had near-death experiences, because I know there's a relationship there. And let me get to that point of that connection. So I'm going to skip over me identifying lots of people here in Miami stuff with that and my paranormal experiences. But basically what happened was in May of 2013, I had just come back from my first and only UFO conference, which is in Sebring, Florida. And there I met Kathleen Martin and Denise Stoner, who are now advisory board members of Free. And I also met this other gentleman, Grant Cameron, who's an interviewer for our Free Research Project. But I didn't even know who these people were, before I went there. So I brought my wife along, and it was like about 3 or 4 days after that event to the best of my recollection. I know it was very soon afterwards. I had what is called what I was calling an ET telegram. I was driving in traffic that morning, about 8:30 in the morning, middle of a traffic jam. All of a sudden, I hear this voice that's telling me something in my brain, and it's not a thought, okay, because it's like someone dictating to you a telegram. Ray, you need to undertake a project, okay? This project, you have to tell the whole world about the relationship between ETs, the spirit world, and quantum physics, okay? This has to be done in multi-languages. It has to be spread throughout the world. You have to bring other people in this project to help you. There's two main criteria here. Number one criteria, there has to be no ego whatsoever, okay? All the people you need to bring in have to have minimal ego. Secondly, it cannot be done for money, for profit, okay? It has to be totally non-for-profit. This is no money-making deal here. And then it tells me, specifically, how I needed to do it and all these details. And then at the same time, I saw a video. The video that I saw was of a spinning wheel, a very large wheel. I was in the middle of the wheel, in the fulcrum of the wheel, and it was spinning all around me, okay? And then in each of the different spokes, because there was different spokes holding up this wheel, was a different paranormal phenomenon. So if you can picture that you're inside, let's say like a tire tube, for example, a tire wheel from a bicycle. And you're in the middle of it, and it's this huge bicycle spinning around. And in each of the different spokes, there'll be like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, telepathy, the spirit world, ETs, shamanic experiences, mystical meditation, all these things floating around you, and each of them in a separate area of the wheel. And then what was holding everything together was quantum physics, okay? And so at that point, I was like freaking out, because that never happened to me, And so I immediately called this other experiencer, who's the only person I had been able to contact to tell these stories to. Her name is Christina Knowles. And I had been talking to her for 2 months. And she was like a godsend because, who do you talk to about these things? I can't talk to my wife because to her, they're angels and that's it, You're an atheist. You wouldn't understand, And so,
she's not interested in any other explanation.
Any other explanation. And for your friends, I've lost a lot of friends over this. Certainly family members you can't talk to, I tried telling them, and there's like one ear out the other, you're nuts, go get some treatment, that sort of thing. And so, talking to Christina really helped because it's someone that you can talk to. So anyway, at 8:30 in the morning, I give her a call. I said, Christina, you wouldn't know what the hell just happened right now. And I tell her all the details. And she said, well, it's happened to her. A lot of experiencers get these things, pull over to the side of the road, just chill out, take deep breaths. And I said, look, I can't even pull over to the side of the road. I'm in the middle of this traffic jam, So anyway, when I got home later on and checked my emails, I got an email from Mary Rodwell, okay, from Australia. And for the people that don't know here, Mary Rodwell is probably by far in outside of the U.S. the most famous researcher that has worked with experiencers. She's much more well known in Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom and Australia, than in the U.S. because of she always gets invited in the summers, and she basically spends the whole summer touring Europe giving presentations. So she would be like the equivalent of like Stan Friedman, Kathleen Martin, Linda Moulton Howe, all these types of level people all rolled up into one in Europe. Okay. So anyway, I had sent her an email more than 6 months ago. And I had sent it to like maybe 10 different people. Okay. And I only got like 2 people responding back to me. These are well-known people. I won't mention their names. So anyway, in Mary's email, she said, Dear Ray, I apologize for responding to this email now, but it just popped up into my screen, and this email was more than 6 months old. And the story of you and your daughter and your friends seeing that huge craft, I've never encountered anyone being so close to a craft for such a long time as you and your daughter. I would love to be able to chat with you to find out more about it. So I responded back and I said, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. After I sent you that email, this is what happened with these NDE experiences. I was basically forced to read these near-death experiences and consciousness studies books for 4 months straight. And then I had those people 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had the NDEs, the very first 3 people I ever talked to. And then just today, I had this ET telegram and this video, this wheel. And so at that point, you say, well, Ray, we need to talk, And so we got, first time ever I used Skype. She was the one that showed me. So we got on Skype. And then at that point, she was listening to me, listening to my story. And then she told me that she was very dear friends with this emeritus professor from Harvard. His name is Dr. Rudy Shields. He's an astrophysicist. He's 74 years old. And that he had been a very close friend of Dr. John Mack. And it was Dr. John Mack that had brought him into this area because Rudy, had no interest in this. And so Dr. John Mack had approached him because he was one of the world's most premier astrophysicists. And Dr. John Mack wanted to learn a little bit more about quantum physics. And that's how they became good friends. And then after that, John Mack introduced him to a lot of experiencers. And that's when Rudy got to see, wow, these are not just crazy people, or crazy stories. This stuff, there might be some legs to this. And so Rudy got hooked. And then Mary told me about him, and we left it at that we would talk at another day. The very next day, at 9:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from Dr. Shields. He called me. And for 90 minutes, he was spoon-feeding me baby food of quantum physics and how quantum physics can explain how these ETs go through the walls, go through windows, how these ships can be in one place and then instantaneously be 20 miles away, how the radar captures them, doing that. All of a sudden, they're 20 miles to the right, 20 miles to the left, on their radar screen. And he says that's all basic quantum physics, And so he was teaching me all of that. And at the end of it all, he said, Ray, these ETs, they gave you very specific instructions, didn't they? I said, yes, sir, they did. He says, Ray, you need to listen to these ETs. And at that point, I was like, what? Here's this Harvard, 74-year-old professor of astrophysics telling me to listen to these ETs. I was like, what the, what's going on here, And so, and he says, Ray, if you do form this organization, I will be your initial advisory board member. I will be your science advisor. Any type of science-related issue, I will be there. If it's going to be a video or a documentary, I will be there. If it's going to be an organization, I will be there. I will support it, count me in. I'll be your first advisory board member. And then he said, on top of that, my mentor, his mentor, okay, the person I was teaching him, is Dr. Edgar Mitchell, okay?
Oh, wow.
Okay,
for those
he says,
of you that don't know, he was the sixth man on the moon, an American hero, one of my favorite astronauts.
Yes, Edgar's pretty much the father of the disclosure movement. Okay, for many, many years ago, he came out public that UFOs are real and that ETs are real. Okay, and Edgar suffered for it, because a good many of these astronauts are multimillionaires because they cashed in on being an astronaut. Edgar never did, okay? I've been to his house 5 times. Edgar lives very, very frugally, okay? His only pension is the pension that he got from the Navy, okay? Because he was in the Navy since the early 50s, okay? And I think it was 20 years, and then he retired after he, came back from NASA. So, Edgar is not a wealthy man at all. He's he's just getting by. Let me put it to you this way. So for all the people that attack Edgar Mitchell, shame on you. They have no idea who this man is. And not only has he been, was he the sixth man on the moon, not only was he pretty much the father of the disclosure movement, okay, Edgar is also one of the world's leading theoretical physicists, okay. He was pretty much the first one to put together the quantum hologram theory of physics with modern consciousness studies, okay. And that's what he was teaching Rudy. the physics aspects of consciousness and the quantum hologram theory of physics. Also, Edgar has been working on the physics of zero-point energy, okay, and the physics of energy healing for many, many years. A lot of people don't know that Edgar was healed of 2 cancers by energy healer, okay? So Edgar is into all of this stuff knee-deep. And that's stuff that a lot of people don't know about. So anyway, Rudy gives me Edgar's telephone number. Edgar's my mentor. Edgar needs to know about this, okay? And call him up. And so I was scared about calling Edgar because I have been reading all those books on, consciousness, specifically the physics of consciousness studies, and pretty much the Edgar was sort of like the pioneer, one of the pioneers associated with the physics of consciousness studies. And he had started numerous institutes throughout the U.S. to study, telepathy. Okay, the Institute for Noetic Sciences, this other physics group called Quantrack. Okay, a lot of stuff that people don't know about. Okay, they just know he was the 6th man on the moon. But I knew what a true genius this man was. So I wasn't going to give him a call. It's like you're talking to, like the President of the United States to me. After like 5 hours, I worked up the courage to give him a call. He said that Rudy spoke with him, and Rudy had sent him an email, and he said that Rudy mentioned that I'm someone that I need to take seriously. So he invited me to his house, okay? And he only lives 90 minutes away from where I live. He lives in Lake Worth, Florida. So he gave me his address, how to get there, that sort of stuff, and I got there the next day, early in the morning. So I basically spent like a half a day with Edgar. And there, it was like a little kid in a candy store because it was just one intimate story after another. He would tell me how he was raised in Roswell, New Mexico, where they had the UFO crash, that his family owned 2 farming stores. One, if I can recall correctly, was on the north end of Roswell, the other one on the south end of Roswell. And he said that he knew almost every family in that valley because one way or another, they had to go through one of his stores, his parents' stores. And that he worked in those stores as well, and that he knew almost everybody there. And so what he says is after he came back from the moon, he said that a lot of the old-timers followed him because he was the town hero. And then he said it was either the old-timer men themselves or their wives or their children would then pull them to the side and said, Edgar, we need to talk to you. And then in these private conversations, they would tell them all the stuff about Roswell, people that were picking up the metal, people that had worked in the hospital, in the military base, and even told me there's a lot of stories that are not in any books because these people only told Edgar, and Edgar's never told anyone else, okay? And it was all stuff about Roswell being true, And that's when he realized for the first time that this is a real phenomenon, okay? Subsequently, Edgar has told me other things as well, which are not going to be mentioned, But, and then he would tell me how he learned how to fly, that in the local airport, the owner of the airport would give him flying lessons instead of cash, instead of being paid, He said, no, I want flying lessons. So as a young teenager, he already was a very good pilot. And then he went off to Carnegie Mellon in Pennsylvania. And I believe he said it was a full scholarship. I think it was. I don't recall directly. I forgot. But anyway, from there, he then became a test pilot for the Navy, and he was part of, I believe it was the Chuck Yeager's group where they tested out all these jets, and that most of the astronauts came from that group. And then how he had applied to enter the NASA program, and he was selected. And then years later, he was sent to MIT to get a Ph.D. in aeronautical physics. And there he helped supervise the construction of the lunar module because he said MIT, a lot of the scientists at MIT and a couple of contractors associated in the MIT area got the contract to build the lunar module. And then he even told me that picture that with Tom Hanks with Apollo 13, how when they had that disaster in the moon, how they had to leave the craft and actually go into the module to preserve the oxygen and things like that. And basically, everyone was basing their what to do next on Edgar, because Edgar said that he was like probably the most leading expert on the lunar module because he had supervised the building of the lunar module for like 4 years, and knew everything about it. And then he even told me he got a Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor you can get. And he even showed it to me on the wall. He says, this was signed by President Nixon, and on and on and on. It was like one story after another. And I was like, oh, my God, am I dreaming?
What an incredible conversation. I mean,
it was incredible. It was incredible.
And then, might add that he is 84 years old. He is 84 years old.
I think in September he turns 85. Okay.
Wow.
And so basically at the end of all of this, Edgar goes, Ray, these ETs gave you a very specific instructions, didn't they? I was like, yes, Edgar, they did. I already told you about it. Well, you need to listen to these ETs. And at that point, I was like, holy, I can't believe it. Edgar's telling me I need to, follow up, And then he said, I already spoke with Rudy about it, okay? You need to do this organization, okay? And if you do it, Rudy and Edgar will be your initial advisory board members, okay? Anything you need, we're here to back you up, to assist you, to follow up on you, okay? And it's been that way since the very beginning with both Edgar and Rudy. So that night when I got home, I sent an email, not that night, that afternoon. I sent an email to Mary Rodwell. And she's like, I think, 14 hours ahead of us. And so we finally hooked up. We had a Skype call with Mary and then Christina, who's my experiencer friend. And I told them, I said, you won't believe what's happened over the last 2 days, Mary, since we last spoke, Rudy called me the next day at 9:30 in the morning, and he was, spoon-feeding me like baby food of quantum physics for 90 minutes, and then telling me to form this organization when didn't even enter my mind, And then Edgar follows up with the same stuff after I was there a half day, and I said, this is crazy. I said, we need to do this organization, because they told me that it needs to be done. So I said, would the three of you like to be the co-founders? And then, and all three of them said, yes, Ray, let's do it, But we had no idea what the hell we were going to do, That's the funny part, We established an organization. We didn't even have a name for it, and we didn't even know what the hell we were going to do.
Well, it would be monumental to even grasp all the different things that you were going to have to do. So I guess that was your way of your mind, not freaking out, just, letting it happen, which that's...
Yeah, because there was nothing there. There was nothing there, So the next step was Mary then sent an email the next day. She says, Ray and Christine, I got a possible name for it. And it's free. The Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. And I said, wow, brilliant. That's fantastic, And so what happened was it was a couple of days after that maybe other experiencers can relate to this, where I went in terms of, I guess other people describe it sort of like lucid dreaming, where like you're half awake and you're like half in another reality. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, Deborah, if you've heard about that from other experiencers.
Yes, I have, and it has happened to me. And I've talked to many experiencers, and they have described, that quite a bit, to be honest.
Okay. I know I've read it before. I've spoken with other people that have had it because I mentioned it to them and trying to describe what happened to me. I won't mention, there's a very, very famous person on our board. And there's a lot of famous people in there, but there's one of them that said that they had that as well. And that's how they were able to crank out a very important paper that they wrote. It was under those conditions. So anyway, what happened was that over like a 3-hour period, I went into this zone, I guess, for lack of a better word. And what I did over like 3 or 4 hours, I wrote like a strategic plan of what Free would be doing. It must have been percolating in my head, those 3 or 4 days, And I started just writing and typing it out. And what I wrote is actually what we're doing now, okay? And maybe that would be a good transition in terms of what Free is doing. Do you want to take a break or go into that? Or?
No, we can go in. We can go ahead and go into that because.
Okay.
I mean, this is so fascinating. I mean, your group is very diverse. Very diverse. First of all, there are a lot of different opinions with different researchers and things, but you really are I mean, everybody is working together, and you're
Yes.
trying to head toward the same goal. So that's what I'm impressed about. But yes, let's just continue. This is really incredible.
Okay. All right. Basically, after 2 weeks that Mary and I and Christina had that initial conversation, we had the vast majority of our advisory board members. Okay. And just like Mary, Mary responded to me. She reached out to me 6 months later, Rudy gave me a call. Edgar invited me to his house. So it's not like I was out there fishing for these people. It's like, they came to me, right? That's how all these other people in Free came about, okay? Whitley Strieber, okay? It was Ralph Steiner that had told Whitley about Free. And then Whitley at that point said, I want in, This is extremely interesting. I want to participate. And that's how, the word got spread and things like that. So it wasn't Ray that was out there hustling. I didn't know these people, So anyway, so I wrote the strategic plan, and then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, we had, the vast majority of these very famous people in our organization. And let me just name some of them. We've got Mary Rodwell. We've got Barbara Lamb. We've got Kathleen Martin. We've got Denise Stoner, who just finished writing a book with Kathleen on alien abductions. We've got Ralph Steiner, who is a quantum physicist and a paranormal researcher. We've got Whitley Strieber. We've got Giorgio Piacenza, who's one of the top ufologists from Peru, and he's a genius. He's also tinkers in quantum physics and is a consciousness studies expert as well. We've got 5 theoretical physicists in Free. We've got 5 now, 5 medical doctors. 2 of them are out in the open. Okay, one of them is Dr. Joseph Burks, and he was one of the people that set up the CE5 organization with Stephen Greer, but he separated with Stephen Greer in 1998. And he's now a retired physician. The other one is Dr. Lynn Keitel with the Phoenix Lights. Okay, now those are only 2 of the people that are out in the open. The other 3 are still behind closed doors. Okay, we've got 5 academics. Almost all of them are retired. Dr. John Klima, who's the world's leading expert in the paranormal. John has been a professor for 40 years. He's taught research methodology for 40 years. He's the world's leading expert on the paranormal. His most famous book is a book on channeling, which is an academic book. It's not just, Joe Schmo does channeling, This is an academic book about channeling. And he's chaired over 250 Ph.D. dissertations. Out of those 250 dissertations, 75 have been on the paranormal, okay, that he's chaired. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, okay, the first academic to research ET contact and the abduction phenomenon. And Leo's 85 years old. And I could go on with very famous names, Dr. Joe Lewis, Reverend Michael Carter. I don't want to forget
anybody. Moulton Howe, one of my favorite Linda Moulton Howe, she's one of my favorite researchers. I believe she is on your
Well, Linda's now a consultant because she's extremely busy. But we do keep her involved with what we're doing, but she's not actively participating with our group because she's extremely busy. But all of the other mentioned...
It's a stellar bunch of people that you have. I mean, very impressive, very impressive.
Yes. No, we've been blessed in that. To me, it was like it was all set up. Everything was orchestrated, So anyway, let me go into Free with what we're doing with Free. Okay. First of all, we have like 3 pillars of Free. The first aspect is education. Okay. Now, for education, we have a website, which is experiencer.co. And we're also going to be doing educational videos because we have so many famous people in our organization, each of them with their own specific gifts. We have 5 Ph.D. psychologists. For example, John Klima is a Ph.D. psychologist. Leo Sprinkle, Ph.D. psychologist. We have Michael Melton is a Ph.D. psychologist. We have Dr. Rebecca Fernandez is a Ph.D. psychologist, and there's one more. So, for example, just on the topic of support, Okay, we could have 5 or 6 different 1-hour video conferences to talk about just support with all of these Ph.D. psychologists. Also, Mary Rodwell, she wrote a book titled Awakening, which is basically a support book for people that have had trauma associated with ET contact. Barbara Lamb, has been working with trauma-related issues with experiences for many, many years. Denise Stoner, I could go on and on and on. So we want to do these educational videos, and everyone has agreed to it. We haven't started them yet, but we're going to be starting in 2015. So we've got our website, we've got these educational videos, okay? And then let me tell you about the philosophy that we have associated with the educational component of it. The philosophy that we have with Free is that, first of all, our focus is not on abductions, okay? Our focus is on ET contact. Abductions are a sliver. They're a % of the overall ET contact phenomenon, okay? Also, we don't perceive the ET contact phenomenon as being either negative or positive or neutral, whatever. We're keeping an open mind as to what it is, even though a lot of people within our group have their own opinions and perspectives and hypotheses, okay? One of the things that I told people before they came into our group, besides giving them the lecture of like no ego in our organization, is the topic that we need to go into what we're doing at Free with an open mind, okay? That even though you might have your own experiences and your own perspective of what's going on, we need to stay neutral, okay, as we begin researching this phenomenon, okay? And so everyone has abided by that. We've had people in our group that have had quote-unquote negative experiences, and other people with positive experiences. Yeah.
Right. How do you deal with the people with the negative experience? You're saying mainly that you want to assimilate all this information and not really, make up your mind one way or the other, because there's so many different experiences by different people in all kinds of lifestyles.
Correct. What we're telling everyone is that, and everyone fully understands, and maybe I'm sort of jumping at the research project now, but let me address that question when we deal with the research project, because I think it more, instead of jumping around, okay? So our perspective is that as an organization, Free is maintaining agenda neutral, about this, okay? While accepting all types of experiences. Okay, we're not going to say, okay, this is just a love and light crowd. All the people have had negative experience and perceived abductions. This is not for you. No, or vice versa. There's a lot of organizations that are out there that are like purely, abduction related. They see ET contact phenomena as purely malevolent, as evil, as bad. Okay, no, that's not the focus we're taking. So, and also the other thing is that a lot of people, for example, have seen an ET in their living room. Nothing happened. They have no perception of being abducted. They can't perceive it as negative or evil. It's just, okay, I saw, these little creatures in my room, scared the shit out of me, Maybe that was the negative part of it, but, but also people have gotten, I've seen a ship, a UFO, okay, and then maybe that night they have gotten like a download or a telepathic communication, okay? So that telepathic communication, can be associated with UFOs because they did see the UFO, okay? So if we were just focusing on just abductions, then all these people that have had these other types of contact would not be involved in this, okay? So that's where we're seeing this as ET contact. Okay, and we're calling ourselves experiencers because it's more of a neutral term to use. Okay, we're not denying that good experiences happen, that bad experiences happen. We're just trying to accept the whole range of phenomenon at this point. Okay. Now, the other thing, the other aspect that we're looking at is that we also have a policy position, that all of the paranormal phenomenon is associated with ET contact. Okay? that there are different modalities within the paranormal phenomenon where people are having contact with non-human intelligent beings. Because that's our focus. Our definition of ETs is non-human intelligent beings. Okay? We don't want to get into like, oh, they're terrestrial, they're interdimensional, they're third-dimensional beings, they're fourth-dimensional beings, fifth-dimensional beings. No, all that stuff is just confuse people. Okay? We're just using the term ET because it's a very simple term that people can perceive and understand. And then our definition is non-human. Okay? It's a non-human intelligent being. Okay? So let me go through the different modalities of the different paranormal phenomenon where people have had conscious contact with non-human intelligent beings. Okay, let's start with near-death experiences, which is the most famous of them all. Okay, near-death experiencers, almost all of them state that in their near-death experience, they have had conscious interactions. They said the vast majority have stated that their conscious interactions are much more livelier, conscious, more awake than you and I talking right now, okay? Because while they're in there, they've had increased senses. They can smell better. They can see better, They can sense the whole reality of their surroundings better. All their senses are heightened. And so that they're perceiving this even more real than our real world right here,